Well, hi folks. I've been kind of excited by the number of questions and comments I've gotten, either from people privately or from just posts down on my feed or on the YouTube channel. And so I've gotten several ideas, and I'm going to start trying to upload those over the next few days. We're going to focus on some quick fix types of things or some suggested things that folks have talked about, with the idea that later on we can develop a larger or a fuller set of reasoning behind some of the things that I suggest from the biblical perspective. Because the goal of everything that we do when we're teaching, training, instructing our kids is to do it from a biblical perspective. And so every point or tip that I give you has a biblical example or a biblical perspective behind it. So today I titled the topic, How to Temper Tantrums. Temper the tantrum before you totally lose your cool or lose your child. So I'm going to talk about 3 different tips that you can try and see if this doesn't work. How many times in the Word of God does God tell us ahead of time that something's going to take place, or He warns us ahead of time that something's going to take place, so that when it actually happens we are not shocked? Our pastor was studying through Zephaniah today, and it made me think about this, because there's warnings, especially through the Old Testament in the major and minor prophets. Lots of warnings ahead of time. In Deuteronomy as well, there's the passage that talks about, if you do this and this and this, then these positive things will happen for you. Deuteronomy 6, Deuteronomy 8, some of those passages. Or if you don't do, here's what's going to happen, and here are the consequences. So God really set up a lot of these types of skills for us way back in the Bible, and if we pay close attention to them, they work. But let's boil it down to something that's really practical for everybody. So I've put this down below in the typing things below, but I know sometimes people like to see things as we go, so I'll hold my little board up here in a minute and let you see them as well. So number 1, I just kind of referenced the biblical passages already, but our number 1 is tell them ahead of time. If you're working with your child and you're planning to go somewhere or do something, never make the assumption that they know or that they've heard you. Tell them ahead of time and make them repeat it back to you what is needed. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple examples. First of all, okay folks, it's time for us to get up and get ready and go to school. So that's one example where you might have a battle with kids. Or the other one is they're sitting playing a game and it's time to go to bed. I forgot to turn my phone off, sorry. See, I use timers as well. So number 1 is tell them ahead of time. So I've written that out. I probably shouldn't let you see the others because normally as a teacher sometimes you make your kids wait before you tell them the rest. But tell them ahead of time. I'll tell you the other 2 right now. Set the timer. And then thank them for compliance. So why in the world would we set a timer, and how can we set a timer? There's a couple different ways. You can stand there as the parent and you can set the timer. Okay, you got 5 minutes, and you better do. Well, sometimes the kid's going to like that. Sometimes he's going to groan. Sometimes he's going to be zoned out in somewhere else. And once again, you're going to have to say, what did I just say? Repeat to me. They're not going to like repeating it, but I'm going to refer back to what I talked about in 1 John 1. The things that we hear, we have to repeat. We have to declare before they'll take ownership. That's something that happens inside your mind. You have to take ownership. You have to help them take ownership gently and kindly. Tell me what I just said. And some of them are going to take a minute before they can answer you back. Some of them it might take a little bit longer. So there's 2 ways to do this. You can set the time. Or you can, now see I have that timer, or I've got this fun one. If you've got munchkins, younger munchkins, sometimes if you get a fun little timer, then they enjoy that better. And you can even let them set the timer. But how much time? So there's ways to determine this. You can be the parent and say, okay, 5 more minutes, then you got to go to bed. Or you can have a little bit more fun with this, where you get some dice. And I've got some fun dice here that I actually made out of paper. And my students had a lot of fun with them. And I would let them pick whichever dice they wanted. So I've got 3 different ones here. And here's the catch with these. This one is not your normal kind of dice. It's got a 5 on this side It has 0 on this side. So if you're dealing with timing something and you want to have some fun with your munchkins, you can say, okay, you get to pick which dice you want to roll for how much time you get. And, or this one's got like a 6 on one side and a 1 on the other side. Okay? And then again, we've got 7 and 2. Now, this is where I'd love to take a poll. If I was in a classroom right now, I would say, okay, so how many of you think your kid's going to pick the one that's got 5 on it? How many think it's going to pick the one with 7 on it? How many is going to pick the one with the 6 on it? And my bet is that most of you are going to say, we're going to pick the one with 7 on it. But a lot of the times, they don't pay attention to the fact that there's a 2 on the other side. So you can teach things about taking ownership, because when they roll that, they've got to take whatever comes up on the top. And it helps to teach little concepts like paying close attention to all the details when you're working with something. All they saw was the 7, but they missed the sides that had the 2. Or sometimes they'll pick it based on color. So it's totally, it'll go that way as well. So, but when you do this, it puts back in their hands some ownership. They get to choose what instrument it is that rolls the dice for them. They also make the deal ahead of time that whatever the results are, you're both in agreement on it. So then they feel like they have some choice in the matter. It's called meaningful choices. And, I can think of an awful lot of biblical examples where God says, again, like what I mentioned earlier with Deuteronomy, if you will choose to do X, Y, and Z, then I will do such and such and so and so. So God gives us choices throughout the Word of God. And He also lets us know what the consequences are. If we choose to do this, then this is what's going to happen. If we choose to do that, then that's what's going to happen. So those are some ideas when it comes to giving them some choice. The other thing that happens with this is once the dice is rolled and the timer is set, the ownership is now on them and this inanimate object. And it's no longer on you. So when the timer goes off, ping, they can get mad at the timer, they can get mad at the dice, but they really can't get mad at you because all you have to say is, that's what you agreed on, right? And then they have to acknowledge that. And in a lot of cases, unless you've got a munchkin who's quite a bit harder, and there's lots of other ideas that I can suggest going forward, that you can try for some of these different things. But most young people, if they're given these choices, will feel like they've been given some kind of control of the situation, because there's actually 4 different kinds of personalities most of the time that you see with kids, and one of them is the person who's got to have everything in control. And those 4 different personalities I will have to address in another video. 4 different ways that kids will react to you. But this is making the assumption that you've got somebody who's got to be in control and they're going to throw a temper tantrum because they think you're trying to dictate what they're doing. But you've put this in their hands, you've given them the options to comply, and you have given them the choices and the timer. Now, I'm going to mention this, but it's something I'm going to have to talk about in another one. Some munchkins won't be able to handle a timer. It'll actually freak them out or cause them issues. But this is worth trying if you've got a munchkin that you can work with these kind of things. Okay, so that's up. Now, the one other thing that I added into this is this whole point number 3. Thank them for their compliance, or thank them for doing what you wanted them to do. A lot of times, we as adults go, well, they should have just done it. I mean, seriously, why do I have to thank them? Because when you do, it reinforces that they made the right choice. So you're thanking them for complying, and even sometimes if they're a little bit, when you say, thank you, I appreciate you making the choice to comply, that again takes some of the control away, because you've handed it back to them that they've had that choice to comply. And again, that will make some kids go ahead and settle back in and do what you need them to do. Now, the last one that I added on here, and I'm going to call it a bonus, is this little idea of tally the triumphs. Okay? Now, in the Christian environment, I've heard this a lot. Whoops, I'm having fun turning this and twisting this for you. Tally the triumphs. In the Christian environment, we often say people should just do because they know it's the right thing to do. Well, is that really totally biblical? When you look in the Word of God and you type in the word crowns, I've made my students at the university do this as a project, and at some point maybe I'll do a video on this. If you want me to do that, I can certainly do that. Who instituted the reward system? It was God. God said, again in Deuteronomy, if you will do, then I will. And the reward system goes both ways. You know, there's positive consequences and there's negative consequences, but God is the one who instituted the reward system. So some students respond to reward systems. Some don't. There's 8 different ways that people are motivated. We have to touch on base on that on another lesson because I can't wear you out too much with just one video. But for this one, I'll just focus on the fact that we do need to keep track of the times that they do the right thing. And choose rewards for them that are good. Things like extra time with mom. Something that they enjoy that is also good for them. And oftentimes, and then again you can talk about the 5 love languages. And there's different things that we can cover with those kinds of things where you allow them to pick rewards based on the love languages that will mean something to them and be meaningful. Just like God rewards us in the Bible. You know, you'll get a crown of life. There's a crown of rejoicing. There's the crown of, there's the shepherd's crown. There's some other crowns. God picks and chooses the rewards that he gives us based on what we're doing, our personalities, and how we operate. Well, that's enough for this time because I'm trying to keep these under 10 to 15 minutes each. If you like what I'm doing, click on the subscribe button below and the little notification button so you'll get notified each time I put up a little video. I hope you have a wonderful day in the Lord. And feel free to add comments or other ideas so that I can know what you're looking for and the things that you want to learn. Thank you.